Good afternoon. My name is Katie Kelly, and I work for Community Legal Services of Mid-Florida. And today I'm going to be speaking about COVID-19 in education, struggling with the new normal. And for any of you who have kids in school, you know that none of this is normal right now. Here's our disclaimer. This information is not intended as legal advice, and it's meant strictly for educational purposes. We are not responsible for how you use this information. Who is Community Legal Services of Mid-Florida? Well, we're a nonprofit legal services organization. We provide free legal aid to more than 20,000 people in Central Florida each year. Our organization covers 12 counties across Central Florida. Our attorneys and advocates can help solve legal issues related to consumer protection, debt and creditors, family law, children and education, domestic violence, elder abuse and neglect, health and income-related benefits, housing, and veterans benefits. Who's the Children's Rights Unit? Well, that's us. We're a unit within CLSMF that provides advice, advocates for, and represents kids with disabilities in school-related matters. The kids we represent are students with disabilities who are in need of appropriate supports and services in the school, kids who have been discriminated against in school on the basis of race, gender, disability, kids who are not yet identified as a student with a disability in school, but are struggling to make progress academically, socially, emotionally, or behaviorally, and kids who have been expelled, suspended, moved to an alternative school after displaying disability-related behavior. Here is our contact information. Community Legal Services in Mid-Florida helpline is 1-800-405-1417. or clsmf.org, and our Children's Rights Unit is 1-386-361-5254. Now, what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to cover the following. We're going to have a brief overview of the Commissioner of Education's executive order. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this executive order. We're going to do a brief overview of school districts' responses to the order. We're going to talk about potential district issues in response to the implementation of the order, like they got the order, what are they going to do with it? We're going to talk about potential issues for parents. You guys know more than anyone that this has really changed your normal. And making the decision finally. How are you to make these monumental decisions? And please remember, school information changes rapidly. Check with your school districts for updates. I would recommend you guys all go to your school district webpage, and the new changes will be there, anything that's changed from this webinar. So, what is this Commissioner of Education Executive Order? Well, it came from the governor's office through the Commissioner of Education, and it was basically talking about or ordering the reopening of school in August. Schools are not just the site of academic learning, it said, but provides many critical services to students such as nutrition, socialization, counseling, and extracurricular activities. Another thing it said was there is a need to open schools fully to ensure the quality and continuity of the educational process, the comprehensive well-being of students and families, and a return to Florida hitting its full economic stride. It also said school openings must be consistent with safety precautions as defined by the Florida Department of Health, local health officials, and supportive of Floridians, young and adult, with underlying condition that make them medically vulnerable. So basically it said, look, school's important. It does more than provide an education. We want to reopen it to help the economy and to help families, but we want you to do it in a way that aligns with what Florida health officials are telling you. And that's where the hilarity began, because across the state, what health departments are saying, including local health authorities, doctors, children's doctors, specialists, they're not quite in alignment with the reopening. So what were the requirements under the executive order? Well, Upon reopening in August, all schools, meaning public schools and charter schools that are part of the public school system, they must open brick and mortar schools at least 5 days a week for all students. School districts and charter schools must provide the full array of services that are required by law so that families who wish to educate their kids in a brick and mortar school full-time have that opportunity. And again, this is public schools and the charter schools within that public school district. Robust progress monitoring must be extended to all students with tiered support for students who are not making adequate progress. Students who are receiving instruction through innovative teaching methods must be provided additional support and the opportunity to transition to another teaching method if they fail to make adequate progress. What the heck does that mean? All right, this is the deal. This executive order called for the reopening of the brick and mortar schools. It also said, we will give you funding, and we'll get to that in a minute. We will give you funding if you have what's called an innovative plan. And these innovative plans allow kids to be at home, but still get kind of a quasi-regular school day. But those kids who are in those innovative programs, you have to progress monitor those kids. You have to check and see how well they're doing, how they're getting along. You have to provide some additional help. And if it's not working for them, you got to let them come right back in the brick and mortar. So the executive order, EO, we got fancy here. Students with disabilities. You know, that's kind of my world. Students with IEPs, those are kids who have a disability and need specialized instruction. Students with IEPs, they must be given the services necessary to ensure they experience a free and appropriate education. What does that mean? That means you have to follow their plan. You have to follow their IEP. School districts must immediately begin working with IEP teams to identify students who may have regressed during school closures. School districts must ensure that IEP teams determine needed services, including compensatory ed services. Now, you know, that seems like, okay, that seems normal that you'd want to gather up all the kids with disabilities and see if they had any regression of skills over the last, I don't know, 5-6 months, until you realize there are probably 250,000 kids with disabilities in Central Florida. The vast majority of those kids have these IEP plans. So school must immediately gather an IEP team together and do some kind of magic to determine how much regression has taken place, and then compensate those kids for the regression. So that's going to be a lot of work when you consider each of these meetings takes anywhere from 45 minutes to 5.5 hours, 6 hours to hold. That's a new burden on the school for sure. IEP teams must follow a student-centered approach with a commitment to ensure that the individual needs of each child are met. That is code for child first, district convenience later. You have to fault to the side of the kid when you're doing this analysis. English language learners, what about those guys? Well, if English language learners, English reading, writing, listening, or speaking skills have regressed during school closures, and by the way, any school closure at all, summer causes a regression in skills. I mean, any of us with kids, you know, they come out in May looking pretty okay, but by the time they get back in August, you know, they have forgotten some of the stuff they need. So those guys, for those kids that have that regression, they have to convene an ELL committee meeting with appropriate staff and parents to determine if additional or supplemental English for speakers of other languages, ESOL, services are needed. So if you have a child who has an IEP, if you have a child who has an ESOL plan, they should be calling you up and having a meeting in the next few weeks to talk about any kind of regression and what skills they need. Although ELL committee meetings may take place virtually or on site, school districts should ensure that the appropriate identification of English skills has been noted and that schools have the resources to implement additional interventions and strategies. Now, that means, look, you can have the meeting online, or you can have it in school, but either way you have it, you've got to make sure you've got some resources to throw at this, because we know we're going to have regression for kids who are struggling English learners. So, they always say follow the money, right? So the most important thing as far as this districts go is, how is all of this going to be funded? Education is underfunded. And so any funding loss can be catastrophic to a school district. So this is what the executive order said about funding. School boards and charter schools governing boards, which means school districts, will receive funding based on pre-COVID-19 full-time equivalent student forecast. That FTE, you'll hear that FTE used a lot. It means a full-time equivalent. For every kid sitting in a seat full-time, they are given so much money. So what they said was, look, we're not going to hurt you because we know you lost a lot of kids during the distance learning plan starting in March. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to February. That was the last count, student count, and we're going to project on that February pre-COVID date. So we'll give you money moving forward. Full FTE credit moving forward for these innovative learning environments. Remember, we talked about that. You have to have brick and mortar, but you can't have an innovative learning environment. That's things like, you'll see it, Volusia Live, Launch Ed, Brevard has one. They all have one. That is a kind of a ride-along program where teachers are live streaming from their classrooms. Although it's anticipated that most students will return to full-time brick and mortar schools, I don't know why they anticipated that, but they said they did. Some parents will continue their kids' education through innovative learning environments. Students receiving virtual education. Now that virtual education is straight up online. Brevard virtual, Orange County virtual, Hernando virtual. That is only virtual education. Those guys are funded at a lesser rate. They get the same FTE credit at a reduced rate. That's why it's been very, very important for school districts to try to channel parents into either brick and mortar, which they're not as fond of because of the issues that brick and mortar will, cause, or these innovative learning plans. So they're talking up these innovative learning plans because they get the full FTE funding for those. So the executive order charter schools. School district charter schools have to follow the executive order if they wish to remain open, and they must have a brick and mortar and an innovative option. Private charter schools. There are private charter schools across Central Florida that have nothing to do with school districts. If you're curious about whether you're dealing with a private charter or a public charter, go to your school district's webpage. They will have all of the public charters listed. But if you have a private charter, look, if you guys want to receive McKay money, Step Up money, Hope Gardner money, Family Empowerment, Opportunity Funding, all of these scholarship and voucher programs, if those schools want that money, they have to follow the executive order as well. So what the heck is an actual innovative learning plan? Well, it's got to mirror the school day. The daily class schedule must be followed. We're talking at least 6 hours of education a day, depending on the school. It can be synchronous. Think about synchronized swimming, right? It's all happening at the same time. So that means it's live streaming out of the classroom. Or asynchronous, which means it's taped for later. It has to follow the kid's IEP, 504, and ELL plans. So if you have a student who goes to a small group setting for part of the day, for that exact part of the day, your student will still be going to a small group setting. Most districts' innovative plans call for teachers to stream their instruction live from the classroom. There are some that are taping that for students to use later if they want to use that later. And currently, most districts have plans to continue these innovative plans should their school buildings close, with teachers possibly teaching out of their homes. So what that means is, Look, what happens if brick and mortar opens and then it closes again? Well, those teachers who have been live streaming their classrooms will continue to do so, but with more people watching probably, and they will probably be doing it from their home, or like they did for some distance plans, they will be in a little more segregated, safer areas of their homeschool. So what are the districts in Central Florida doing to this? And this is, again, subject to change. Orange County, they have 3 plans for the executive order. Launch Ed. Well, Launch Ed just changed. Launch Ed was going to start later. Launch Ed now begins August 10th. It is a full day brick and mortar opening of 8/21. So what they did, they kind of see the writing on the wall, and this is interesting. They believe, I think, that schools will close again, and they want all students prepared for Launch Ed. So 8/10, and then full reopening, the grand opening is on 8/21. Launch Ed at home, that's their innovative program, and the kids are at home, and it's synchronous, right? It's IRL, it's in real time. And you can always, with all of these plans, and this will get redundant, there's the option to return after 9 weeks. You can go right back to brick and mortar if you don't like it after 9 weeks. And let me tell you a little pro tip. You probably have the ability to get in and out of these programs relatively at will if you call your school district and give them a reason for the change. Okay. Orange County Virtual, online, no intersect with homeschool. More flexibility, but far less support, and the option to return after the semester break. This is the only one. These standalone virtuals are the only ones that are difficult to transition out of because they're usually following a different curriculum than the schools do. I mean, they have the state curriculum, but they may go through it at a faster or a slower rate, because your virtual is determined kind of by the student doing it. So that they will try to make you wait until semester break. Again, at this point, I would assume everything's negotiable. If you start out in virtual and you cannot do it, your student cannot do it because they need more help, call your district and tell them you need to be in another plan. Orange County has submitted a waiver to delay the reopening past August. There has been no response yet. When Orange County submitted their plan to the commissioner and the governor, they asked for a waiver saying, we can't, we're not comfortable yet doing this. And we want to know that if our local health authority tells us that the plan, that it's unsafe, right? Then we won't have to open. And they said the waiver was ignored. Seminole, brick and mortar, their start date was unsure when I wrote this. Check on the webpage, please. They were going back between the 21st, the 24th, and I believe the 30th. So please check with them. They have Seminole Connect for their innovative plan. It's synchronous, meaning you have to sit there all day for the 6 hours, your child, to get the plan, to make the plan. You can change it after 9 weeks. You can go back to brick and mortar. They also have Seminole Virtual. Obviously, that's online, flexible hours, little support, may change at semester. They also, interestingly enough, have this hybrid program meant to meet unique needs. The elementary school, it combines face-to-face and Seminole County Virtual at home, resorting in a partial school day. So the idea there is, look, if you've got kind of a struggling learner and they really need to hear English language arts directly from a teacher or math directly from a teacher, you can do that. And then you just go pick them up after those classes and bring them on back. Secondary, same thing. Volusia County, brick and mortar, August 31st. They're exploring a waiver. They're also, they've been very active in trying to include their teachers union as part of their conversation, and that factors into a lot of these plans. Teachers do not get paid in a lot of counties if they extend the start time as far as August 31st. teachers miss a paycheck. So what they're doing is they're trying to find a way for teachers to work from the regular start date of like August 10th, 11th, all the way to August 31st. So I'd say they're still in the exploration stage in Volusia. Volusia Live, that's their innovative plan. It runs concurrently, it's synchronous, and it's live streaming from the traditional classrooms. And then they have an enhanced Volusia online learning. So Volusia used to always have just Volusia online. And it's just your basic Betty online program. Parents had to do all the support, all the tutoring, but the kids could do it whenever they wanted. Now they are providing options for some limited support from teachers. I spoke to the ESE director, and she said that they would be providing ESE support for students in Volusia County who do straight up virtual. Brevard, brick and mortar, currently 8/24/20, full-time learning from school at home. That's a long title. Full-time e-learning from school at home is their innovative plan. Mirrors the school day. That means it's live streamed. Your child has to be in front of the computer the entire time, and it may change after 9 weeks. Part-time, in-person, part-time Brevard. It's a hybrid day. Not a lot of details on it yet when I wrote this, and that may change. You may change that after 9 weeks. Anything this and above, you can change after 9 weeks. And then full-time Brevard virtual. It is the most flexible with the least support. Lake County, brick and mortar begins 8/24. Their virtual has 2 or 3 live teacher sessions weekly available to the student. Electives are available, and you can return after 9 weeks. They have a modified day for ELA, English Language Arts, and math, and the other courses are taken virtually. I don't know, these modified day programs as a parent sound kind of like the worst of both worlds, where you expose your child to maybe someone who, maybe COVID positive, and you have the extra burden of doing the rest of the day with your student, plus extra transportation. So that, I don't know who wants that plan. You would have to be a more flexible person maybe than I am to enjoy that plan, but it's out there if you need it. And then Lake Live, that is just structured virtual learning that mirrors a traditional day school, and it's 9 weeks. Flagler's still in flux. Brick and mortar starting 8/10/2020. They have remote live for their innovative learning plan. It mirrors the classroom. Districts providing significant technical support and equipment. Look, Flagler's always been technically fairly savvy. They were a one-to-one district where every student had a computer in the district. What they're doing is they provided hotspots. They have a rather large rural population. They have provided hotspots for the parents. And right now they are providing either internet or hotspot for every student in the county. They've committed to do that. And they're working with families with accessibility issues, which is great. They also have iFlagler. That's their online option. It's flexible. Teacher support can be provided in district buildings. Not sure about that. That means kids have to go in and see somebody face-to-face if they want help, and you can change it after the semester. Marion County, brick and mortar starts 8/24/20. They have Marion County Public School online. Their innovative plan, it's asynchronous. It's taped lessons that can be viewed anytime. You can also live stream those lessons, which is really helpful to parents whose kids cannot sit for 6 hours in a row. Teachers are available throughout the day. Small group instruction is available at scheduled time. You can change it at 9 weeks. And we don't know much about their online only plan since they're still changing things. Osceola begins 8/24/20. Their digital learning plan, it's called. It's both synchronous and asynchronous, meaning it is being live streamed and taped to watch later. It'll follow the standard school day and will be available later. 9 weeks, you can change out of that plan. And again, look, negotiate. If you need to get out of a plan, call your school district. And then they have Osceola Virtual. It's online only, and we don't know yet about the support, and you can change it at the semester break. So what are the issues these school districts are going to have with this thing? Well, you can imagine, this has been like being shot out of a fire hose into a blender for these school districts. Well, here's some potential issues, right? Lack of technology. A lot of districts didn't move quickly enough to buy computers for the students. There's a 7-month wait for bulk computers now. Now you might think, well, why do schools have to buy computers for kids? Well, because it's discriminatory if you have kids who cannot access it due to poverty, and having a disproportionate number of your students who are in poverty be Black, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, then it becomes discriminatory. Where some kids get the really cool education because they have a computer at home, and other kids are forced into going into schools where they may in turn infect someone at home with a pre-existing condition. Nobody wants to make families make those choices simply because of a lack of computer. Many districts really weren't aware or didn't consider how many kids don't have internet or internet capability. And again, it's, follow the money, honey. Districts don't have a lot of extra money to buy internet hotspots or, provide those services. And many parents don't have printers at home. And it's really important for some virtual options. And the district is not going to buy printers for people. So that all kind of ends up trickling down to this lack of funding. There were CARES dollars provided, but there weren't enough of them. And they're kind of trying to pick, do we, get PPE for our staff, masks, gloves, cleaning supplies, or do we get internet? And in large districts like Orange County, there's just not enough money to do all of it. There's no funding to do split schedules. Originally they talked about split schedules where kids could go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or whatever. Well, the governor put, a kibosh on that, and now that's not allowed. But a lot of districts considered it and realized they couldn't afford to run 2 different bus schedules. And then, another issue is straight virtual programs have been chosen by a lot of families because of the flexibility, but they don't fully fund the district. And that will result in an even more poorly funded district next year. How about district issues with teachers? I'm a former teacher. We have an aging teacher staff. Many of those teachers have pre-existing conditions. Districts have notoriously poor insurance plans for these people. Teachers must now live stream and teach. Look, I can barely walk and chew gum. And you're asking a teacher with kids in the classroom to not only take care of all of those kids in that classroom, but to also stream online, stay in front of the screen, the laptop, answer the chat questions at the same time. Managing both classroom and online students is going to be difficult. Classrooms may be more crowded. We've heard in, I believe it was Osceola at their school board meeting, that as teachers get siphoned off to do virtual, they need to push the remaining kids back into the existing classrooms. And so those classrooms may be more crowded since some staff will be teaching virtual. We're also going to have more crowded classrooms as teachers call out sick or need to be quarantined. So those increased in classrooms may lead to increased infectivity rates. Teachers may not show up. I'm aware of several teachers personally who have quit rather than go back and do this. And not because they're chickens. Look, I don't want that to be the takeaway. The takeaway is that they're human beings who are being asked to do something that a lot of us wouldn't do. And these human beings also have families that may have pre-existing conditions. And there's just a lack of subs to replace them. There just is. So further potential district issues come with support staff. Well, the average age of bus drivers in Florida is 61 years old. Substitutes, they're uninsured. You know, there's going to be this huge need for subs, and you're asking people to go in a, you know, relatively crowded environment with kids who may or may not be able to wear masks and work uninsured. And new teachers, all district new hires, they're not insured until mid to late October. So how about special ed staff? Those guys have increased exposure. Many parents of students with disabilities feel that their kids can't wear masks. Those students will be exempt from wearing them. Staff must interact in very close proximity with these students, toileting, diaper changing, doing hand-over-hand instruction, dealing with students having behavioral crises. I mean, it's a very different world when the kids you're used to dealing with may be carriers of something that you don't want to get, and masks aren't maybe appropriate to that situation. So there's potential district issues in public health. Okay, lack of PPE, disinfectant, and soap is common. I can't tell you how many school districts have told me, you know, we never have enough soap to last the year. We can't get soap. You know, we can't get, now they're saying we can't get disinfectants, we can't get PPE. You have people, I think it was Osceola, that they sent staff in to clean the buildings, their janitorial staff, and 5 of them came down with COVID. So time will tell if the districts can actually keep up with the demand. There's no clear-cut plan for contact tracing in the schools. Hallways, lunchrooms are still going to be more crowded. Most districts don't require mandatory masks in the classrooms. There's currently confusion as to who will be contacted when a staff member or a student tests positive. Students and staff may be asymptomatic, leading to increased spread. And as staff goes into isolation, schools may close. So what are the potential parent concerns here? I mean, you guys should probably be telling me this list. Parents are struggling. You know, their work schedules, they're trying to maintain their employment. They have technology issues in their home. They may have a computer. If they've got 4 kids, they probably don't have 4 computers, who are all trying to do these innovative plans in, you know, at the same time. Parents have a hard time to understand the curriculum. Any of y'all, who have ever tried to do 6th grade math and above, Khan Academy is your friend. Most of us can't understand the curriculum after a certain amount of time. You might have difficulty getting help from staff. Schools seem to be making changes to improve it, but staff is overwhelmed, and trying to do one-on-one outside of those classroom hours is difficult. There's different expectations for different students within the home. And so that means that student A may be on a certain kind of web platform, student B may be on a different kind of web platform. Nobody knows when schools are going to open or close. Look, personal opinion, and this is not a CLSMF authorized opinion, it's just Katie's best guess. I don't know that they're going to open, but I do know that most of the school board members that I talk to believe it will close shortly after. If you look at what happened in Georgia to the kids camp that opened up, I don't know, 200 kids in there. And I think they said 58% something tested positive within a week. And parents who send their kids to school because they have to work may be imperiling their own health. And those parents, again, we're talking trickle down, those parents, some of them have no other caretakers for their children should they become ill. And so these are tremendous burdens for parents right now. So making the decision, 5 things to consider. Your children. How will your children, react to this? The health of your household. Your ability to quarantine should it become necessary. If you are employed and your child comes home and you've obviously been in contact with your own child, would you have the capacity to quarantine? Your support system. Do you have extended family that can help you? And your personal employment situation. Let's talk about your children. The age and personality of your kids. Some kids are just troopers. I mean, I just have one son that I always said I could throw him on an island and come back in 18 years and he'd have been fine. Some kids, though, will struggle with these new rules at school, and those kids may be subject to discipline because of that. So if you have one that kind of is not a rule follower, that kid is going to struggle probably. Sensitive kids or younger kids, they can become very fearful of school at this time. I always say, trauma happens in unexpected ways to children. And you talk about little babies like, preschool, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. Those kids going into a school that looks like, like something out of an Ebola ward, where everyone is masked and they're, reprimanding them, stay back, stay away from each other, don't hug, don't touch. It can be hard on some kids. And you have to know if your child is a kid who is good with that, because none of us want our kids to grow up to be fearful of school. So how would they handle, for instance, hearing that someone else became ill? If you've got a sensitive one, think about it. Some kids just need direct teacher instruction. I mean, I'm a person who represents parents of kids with disabilities, and I can tell you, some kids, their parents are just not equipped to educate them, not because they are poor parents by any means, but because the task is too great. Some kids cannot, or will not wear a mask. This potentially affects their health and the health of those around them, including the parent, right? It's not just the teachers, it's the parents. Some kids struggle with transitions. Schools may open and close, open and close. You need to know if your child's a child who struggles with transitions. How's a healthier household, right? Do any family members have underlying conditions or conditions that would make getting COVID-2 more dangerous? I don't know why that says COVID-2. Apologies. Autoimmune issues, prior treatments for cancer, high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, age, breathing conditions such as COPD and asthma. Your ability to quarantine, if you needed to isolate for 2 weeks or longer, would that be possible? And this is the problem with the isolation now. The testing is taking so long that people aren't getting their test results back for 10 days. And they want you, some places, to have 2 negatives before you come back. So do the math. Could you isolate effectively within your home? Should, your child become positive? Should you become positive? Do you have a way to isolate yourself from other family members who may be in harm's way? Your support system. Some people don't have a support system. I don't know if you do or you don't, but if you do have one, are you able to stay home with your children? Can someone step in and help you? Do you have technology? Do you have internet access? Will your district provide it if you request it? Request it. If you need more computers, please contact your district and request it. Are you comfortable educating your children? Do you know how to seek help? How to ask questions? How to go to Khan Academy? How to Google it? Do you have a health insurance? And can you withstand potential medical bills if you have copays? Do you have extended family or friends who can step in should your child's caretaker become ill? I have suggested to some people that they turn the education of their children over to a relative. Do you have a relative that can come in while you work and supervise your kids while they're doing a distance plan? Your employment situation, this is the tough one. Can you afford not to send your kids to school? That's the never-ending job stopper for some people. If they don't go to work, they will not be employed. Do you have a plan B if your school closes after reopening? Because this is actually the greater danger, is that schools will open and then reclose. And do you have a plan in place for your children if that happens again? So this is the deal. Everybody at school is going to meet virtually, probably. Okay, if it opens and if it closes again, you will be meeting virtually about your child. If you have an IEP or a 504 plan, ELL plan, you will be meeting virtually. You know, some of us who do a lot of virtual presentations with work or have a lot of these meetings, we're real used to it, right? It's not easy if you haven't done it before because you don't know what's happening, right? You don't know what the expectations are. So here, this is to help you. So you find out what platform they're using for the meeting. So it'll be something like Teams or Zoom or WebEx, and you download the app before the meeting. You do that on your phone if you need to. All these things run on telephones too. You do a test run to make sure your technology is working properly prior to the meeting. You can ask anybody at school to do a test run for you. You can get a friend to download the app and you can do it back and forth. You can ask your school to do it, like I said, and to do like a little practice session, like how are they going to share documents and that kind of thing. Try to use the camera function if possible. You know, it's going to be helpful if, especially if this is an IEP team meeting, it's going to be helpful for them to see you. It's easy to dismiss someone's concerns when you can't see them. Make sure you're in an okay spot for the meeting. I have parents who go out to the car because that's the only quiet spot. You know, that's fine. Find a quiet area. Don't do like I've seen at some meetings where you're sitting on a couch and then you're laying on a couch and then you're rolling around on a couch. I know none of you would do that, but you know, make sure. Ask people if this meeting is being recorded. If it's recorded, you have a right to it because it's an educational document. Set your kids up somewhere else in the house if possible. Your kids don't need to hear adults talking about them during the meeting. Dress as if you're attending an IEP meeting or an in-person meeting. Always wear appropriate attire. I've had people show up at meetings in jammies, right? So let's not wear the jammies. And remember too, you can still have whoever you want at a school meeting. That's a right in the state of Florida. You get to have a friend, an advocate, whoever you want, and they can attend it virtually also. So that's the general gist of it today. That's as much as I know. Now you know what I know, but please remember, the school information changes rapidly. Please check with your school districts for updates. Well, that's all I've got for today. If you have any questions, you can email them to clsmf.org and they can forward them to me, or you can call the Children's Rights number, which is at the beginning of this video. Take care and stay safe.